I-24 News, the Trump administration says it now has proof that the Assad regime was responsible for last weekend's suspected chemical attack in Syria.
We can say that the Syrian government was behind this attack.
The leader of Hezbollah says Israel made a historic mistake when it fired at Iranian targets in Syria and threatened that Israel was now in a direct conflict with Iran.
And at the U.S. Justice Department, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein has reportedly told friends he expects to be fired by President Trump over the Russia investigation.
From the I-24 News studios in Times Square in New York, this is Crossroads with David Schuster and Tal Heinrich.
After a week of looking at satellite images and other intelligence related to that alleged chemical attack in Syria, the Trump administration now says it is convinced the Assad regime was responsible.
The president has promised a decision would be made soon, but so far has yet to announce a plan. It all comes amid mounting pressure on the U.S. and key allies to respond to a chemical weapons attack. Correspondent Kenneth Moten has more.
Tough words from the U.S. at an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council.
I'm in awe, Vasily, of how you say what you say with a straight face.
U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley calling out Russia's ambassador for defending Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's suspected use of chemical weapons on his own people. Despite the sickening images, Russia's foreign minister called it all fake, claiming there was no chemical attack.
But we know who did this. Our allies know who did this. Russia can complain all it wants about fake news, but no one is buying its lies and its cover-ups.
President Trump and U.S. allies are still weighing a potential military strike against Syria. There's movement in the Mediterranean, a U.S. destroyer and aircraft from the U.K. and France.
We're continuing to have ongoing conversations with our partners and allies. We're continuing to have ongoing meetings and conversations here at the White House.
President Trump more cautious.
We'll see what happens, folks.
After first telling the world on Twitter missiles that are nice and new and smart are coming, House Democrats blasted the president.
The president's behavior is both reckless and irresponsible.
He just spouts at the mouth like a drunkard. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what the reality of what we're dealing with.
That was Kenneth Moten reporting. For more, let's bring in senior diplomatic correspondent Nina Larson at the United Nations. Nina, Russia called this meeting of the Security Council today the third session since the suspected chemical weapons attack. What was on the agenda?
Well, it was meant to be Russia's agenda, Tal. They called the meeting and they were trying to make a case not to attack Syria, but it really turned around to the UK, US and France making a case why they should attack Syria. And you've seen those exchanges between Nikki Haley and her Russian counterpart. It was really quite extraordinary. I think the thing that really stood out to me is that the Russian ambassador flat out accused MI6 of staging that chemical attack in Syria last week, and you can imagine the response from the British on that. They said, of course, it was a blatant lie, but the entire focus was on the use of chemical weapons here today and how they should be outlawed completely.
And with all of the tensions there and the rhetoric intensifying, how are all the global powers reacting, and how's the UN Secretary General viewing all of this?
Well, he's been very forthright. He's very concerned. But that's his job, David. He's supposed to oversee peace and security in the world. And that's what the United Nations is meant to be for. He had a stark warning. He said the Cold War is back. And, of course, he urged everybody to really wind down tensions and look at the wider picture here, that this really could escalate into a wider conflict because there are so many superpowers involved.
Nina, has this meeting backfired on Russia and made military action more likely? What's your thought?
Well, I think it is more likely now. They've all had their say here today. The inspectors are on the ground, and we've had public comment